Don't say that about your mother. I don't care if this is my mother, bro. I'm still hitting that shit. That's the real bro.
Ramona Flowers.
This is my mommy, bro. Oh my God. Oh my God, bro. I'm getting break. I'm about to bust. Bro, I'm nutting on her face. Let's get the back shot, and back shot, It's okay though, cause I get to see my bae. And cause like she's always glowing, she's always looking good. I'ma suck the shit out of her toes,
Hey everyone, it's shilling time again. So first of all, I got my old Twitter back, so that's gonna be my main from now on.
Do you remember me now?
Can't be. You were killed in Zanzibar.
My main Twitter account is Top Brick Boss, and my alt account is Lone Grips. Follow whichever one you want, I guess. I also have Instagram, that one too. And I have El Patreon, you can give me money. If I get $1,000, I'll post feed pics or something. Oh, by the way, before I forget, I have a new podcast now. The podcast is called A Film Sheet, and you can subscribe and watch our new episodes right now. If you want to see me talk movies with Ellis Mark and Jaden from The Sonic Show, hit the link down below and subscribe. Not convinced yet? Here's one of our funniest moments. Wow, wasn't that moment hilarious? These moments and more on our podcast Film Sheet. Anyways, that's all. Here's the actual YouTube video. You know, boys, sometimes there's a light at the end of the tunnel. A kind of reprieve of sorts. A sort of happy ending to an arc. I've been making film reviews for about 4 years now. And I review like a lot of shit, bro. Like a lot of shit. And one video that got very popular recently was the Clone High video. A kind of pretentious exploration into my disappointment on a adult cartoon. Some people loved that video. Some people hated it. And even though obviously I was very self-aware making it, it also was kind of artsy and personal. I'm not gonna lie to you, I was going through some stuff in my personal life, and as a result, I let it mix with my disappointment in the Clone High Season 2 reboot, which led to a very weirdly intimate video. Some people loved it, others questioned why there were weird analog horror elements in it. The truth is that I really like Silent Hill 2, but also it did reflect the kind of self-deprecating nature of the show. The show wants to be meta? Well, okay, I'll be fucking depressing levels of meta back. The show wants to be all meta and shit? Come on, Evangelion reference, man. But at heart, I was very disappointed. A show that defined my high school life had a reboot that just straight up sucked.
Watching and the paparazzi is flocking.
John in Tennessee, go ahead, what you want to say?
That shit is fucking trash, dog. Get the fuck off the air.
Removing all the soul and comedic timing of the original in favor for weird cancel culture commentary. Celebrity cameos that were once hilarious and had jokes around them now felt just out of place and random. And once great, nuanced characters were completely assassinated. All because a whole new generation of Clone High fans who are media illiterate were tasked with writing a reboot to a show they clearly didn't really understand.
I am retarded. I am retarded.
So, even though I was over the moon excited for it, this made the idea of a modern Scott Pilgrim Netflix show fucking terrifying. If it was somehow easy for writers to fuck up Abe Lincoln's character, then imagine how would handle a character who's equally socially inept, but this time he does shit like dating a minor, only to then cheat on her.
I am retarded.
On top of fucking over a lot of his previous relationships, and then lying to himself that they caused the breakup. So that way, this goddamn man-child can feel better about it. And somehow you have to wrap that into a character who is as pathetic as he is relatable, which allows for a very complicated self-reflective character story of a terrible person becoming less terrible by the end of it. Already, do you understand how hard of an act that is? And that's, of course, on top of the fact that I fucking love Scott Pilgrim.
Oh, Dumsy, sweetie, it's me, your mother. I would love it if you had a normal taste in women.
Had a good chuckle over that one. I'm coming.
Who's coming? Huh? If you're coming right now, let me see it. Huh? He who is coming?
that made me concerned yet interested in Scott Pilgrim Takes Off. I was excited for a new Scott Pilgrim anything, and the animation of course looked incredible, but they could also really mess this up if they weren't careful. So I sat there, day the show came out, watched the first episode, pointed at, oh my god, look, it's Ramona's cat, oh my god. I was a little weirded out by the lack of key scenes in the first book, but this was a new adaptation, and it was clear they were doing some new things in it. And I mean, hey, Scott's a lot more hyperactive and Ramona's a lot more nice, just like the book. I adore the movie and all, but Michael Cera just kind of plays as Michael Cera and not the kind of hyperactive dorkball from the books. And while Ramona is mommy anywhere, anytime, she was kind of a bitch in the movie. She was a lot nicer and kinder in the books, which helps you understand Scott's view on her and why he likes her a lot. So already I'm liking where this is going so far. I was giddy and happy, and then Scott dies. Okay, well, now I have to talk about it.
We need to talk about Scott Pilgrim.
Bought some new fragrance, I like to smell good when I'm getting geeked up. My bitch just put on a little bitty dress, she looking so good I might feel on her butt. These niggas, they know we not the ones that test, they try that shit, them little niggas might just flunk. We having them chopsticks and them little pumps. I'm pouring up drink, bitch, I don't get drunk. My little space, bitch, I'm out there ozone. Bad bitch, give me face, yeah, with no clothes on. I'm a fly young nigga, put clothes on. If you ain't playing along, nigga, that's the wrong song. We did bad at home, she sing along, and she just pulled up with no panties on. Yeah,
So first off, there's no denying, the new Scott Pilgrim show has been a little bit controversial. People complaining about the whole bait and switch thing, the fact that Scott barely is in the anime, comparisons to other punching bags have been made, and look, quite a few people hating on this are the kind of grifters that I've made fun of on this channel before. But at the exact same time, I'm the guy who made the 40-minute long Clone High video. Not to mention, I shat on The Matrix Resurrections, which is a pretty similar metafictional-wise. If there's anyone who would be critical of a bait and switch, it would probably be me. And the fact that it's being done to one of my favorite franchises period would probably make me even more critical. And for the first 2 episodes, yeah, I was side-eyeing this shit. I was expecting a new Scott Pilgrim adaptation, one that had shit like Lisa and the robot, and the fact that it ended up not being that at all just ended up confusing me. But then the show did something very interesting. It kept going, and that's when I noticed something. Knives Chow is 17, and Scott Pilgrim is 23 in the comics and show, but 22 in the movie. Now take that 1-year age inconsistency and subtract that from Knives' age, you get 16. Now Scott's age in the show is 23, but take the age gap between him and Knives, that makes 28. And take that number and add the 1-year age inconsistency to that, and what do you get? You get the real secret ages of Scott and Knives. And what are those numbers?
16. And he's 29.
16, 29.
We tap out the good.
But anyways, yeah, the show kept going. I mean, of course it would keep going, but every which way, thematically speaking, the show surprised me. And then it hit me. This isn't a new adaptation or a reboot. This is straight up Scott Pilgrim 2. And that's important to note because Scott Pilgrim is the kind of work that can't have a sequel. Both the books and the movie end on a pretty definitive note. There's nothing else to explore with these characters or the universe. At least that's what I thought until Scott Pilgrim played its greatest trick. And not only is this Scott Pilgrim 2, it's also Metal Gear Solid 2. Now, for those who don't already know, MGS2 is essentially one big anti-sequel, birthed out of the insecurity of a creator making a predecessor that is literally perfect. Both Hideo Kojima's Metal Gear Solid and Brian Lee O'Malley's Scott Pilgrim, both sooner or later gain a massive cultural following.
I need you. I need you. I can't play Fortnite by myself.
The type that would create memories and expectations that would be impossible to live up to. And on top of that, I have to further wonder if Brian Lee O'Malley has seen the conversation around his work in a way that isn't too dissimilar from Kojima seeing the internet blooming at the time, making that the foundation of MGS2. I can only imagine how stressful and even humiliating it would be if your work caused a song called Scott Pilgrim Ruined a Whole Generation of Women to exist. exist. I know this sounds like one big tangent, but trust me, this is absolutely important. Putting this into context and analyzing Scott Pilgrim Takes Off's narrative around this allows the entire show to make so much more sense. The show, quote-unquote, kills off Scott Pilgrim and focuses a lot on Ramona. But not only is Ramona the main focus of Scott Pilgrim Takes Off, she's almost kind of at certain points put on trial. In almost the exact same way the original series put our main character Scott on trial. It's easy to miss with all the manic pixie dream girl shit and the movie kind of flanderizing things a little bit, but here's a reminder that Ramona isn't that great of a person either. Not only is she constantly running away from her problems and emotional issues, but also, let's be honest here, she kinda caused her evil exes to happen, and she really isn't that much better than Scott is. Of course, not counting the parts where Scott goes,
"Man, it doesn't matter, she 15, my."
And this is pretty much the premise for most of the show. Ramona has a complete inability to just date one person at a fucking time, and runs away from people the moment she's done with them. And good God, certain points in the show, it gets relentless about it. The big standout example being Roxy. Ramona fucked her over. Like, remember in the actual source material when Ramona describes her as,
"It was just a phase."
And you even see glimpses of how Roxy viewed their relationship and how most of the memories are pretty sweet and positive. So when Ramona up and leaves, it makes me feel just terrible for Roxy. Jesus. And you pretty much just see all this as Ramona is trying to apologize to Roxy. It's one of the most emotionally charged scenes in the whole show, and it's just, wow, holy shit. Maybe Ramona is just a fucking awful person. Jesus Christ. The show does the same thing with Lucas Lee. He pretty much became a world-famous skater and actor because Ramona just up and left him. And the show does it again with the twins, where Ramona dates both of them at the exact same time, and then Knives points out that someone else dated two people at the exact same time. And not only does this expand the universe of the show, but again, it really dives into who Ramona actually is. She, like Scott, is a deeply flawed person, but through all of her closure reveals that she's not one that's beyond redemption. And this expands what the original Scott Pilgrim was. Deeply flawed people becoming better people. And this expands to all the other characters. I never knew I wanted the evil exes to be expanded upon through backstories, but I appreciate it so much. And not only that, but the new scenarios the characters take place in flesh them out even further. Like, for example, Todd being gay. Or how Gideon Graves used to be Gordon Goose and now has a whole arc with Julie. A lot of this expands the source material in a very interesting way. I can go back and revisit all the source material with everything intact and I'll still love it the same, but I will also have a brand new level of context for every character. One that'll make some of the X's just downright tragic. And that's what to me makes a good sequel, or even to some extent good reboots. You expand the universe but don't invalidate what came before. In contrast, I'm reminded just how much Clone High fucked this up and how just self-deprecating that whole show was, to the point of even having an entire episode criticizing nostalgia, even though it A, references the original all the time, and B, does everything way fucking worse than the original. And it'll never cease to amaze me that people still defend what is essentially the adult animated version of Modern Warfare 3. The new one. And the crazy part is, Scott Pilgrim Takes Off isn't even really that much better in quality from the original. And I'm more than okay with that, because it's not really trying to be. Of course it knows how beloved the original is, but it's just simply trying to be a good follow-up. There's no shitty new characters or fucking TikTok, and there's no goddamn shipping episode where JFK goes around stealing a breast milk while people fucking the gulags from Warzone. It's less a Clone High Season 2 trying to insult the source material every which way, and instead understands the monumental task of following up Scott Pilgrim. So, in a very MGS2 type way, forms its narrative around that idea. It's not concerned about pseudo-deconstructing the characters. In fact, it's really impressive how little these characters actually felt like they've changed, because the people working on this show understood that they didn't need to change. Can you believe there's no major new characters in this show? I couldn't believe it either. We loved all these characters for a reason, and Scott Pilgrim reminds me why I loved these characters so much. It's like rediscovering a bunch of old friends again, honestly. And on that note, I think that's what Scott Pilgrim Takes Off really is about. At least partially, that is. The show is about rediscovering a universe that hasn't been around in a while. That's why Scott Pilgrim's original premise of 7 evil exes is tossed to the wayside in favor of Scott just going missing. Ramona is looking for Scott Pilgrim and exploring the very universe she inhabits. And this is a parallel to us, the viewer. Again, I'm sure everyone was expecting a brand new adaptation of the same books and movie, and I won't lie to you, you, finding out this wasn't what the show was going to be at the last minute was very disappointing. But why is that? Why do we get excited for new adaptations of the same story? Of course, there's no one direct answer, but one big answer for me is because I get to rediscover what I loved about that source material, which is just like how Ramona is trying to rediscover Scott throughout the show, like we are. We autistic gamers. Scott doesn't go missing so the show can demean him, even though he, deserves it, but rather because the show wishes to rediscover him. Again, I wouldn't be shocked if Brian Lee O'Malley saw Scott Pilgrim as a groomer tweet number 5 million and kind of felt frustrated that his points were being missed all over the place. This is even more so the case in putting in both the movie plot line and the old Scott plot twist. There is literally an entire subplot where a mysterious figure writes a screenplay, and the character of young Neil thinks that he wrote it the whole time. So there's a whole thing where they're making a Scott Pilgrim movie in the universe of Scott Pilgrim about Scott Pilgrim, directed by Edgar Wrong, but sadly the whole thing falls apart because it was made by Embracer Group. And then later in the show, it's revealed that Scott Pilgrim, the entire show, was kidnapped by himself, the future version of him, which I will admit I did predict it and see it coming, but man, seeing old Scott's just too cool to pass up. And also, coincidentally, he's voiced by Will Forte, Abe Lincoln from Clone High. I mean, goddamn, going from a piece of shit to this, I gotta say, what a glow up. And turns out him and Ramona are divorced now. And Scott, being a pathetic man-child, kidnapped himself to try and convince him to never meet Ramona. But then younger Scott goes to meet older Ramona. And turns out an older young Neil wrote an entire book about the relationship between Scott and Ramona. And turns out it was older Ramona who adapted it into a screenplay and gave it to younger young Neil in the past through time travel. And the reason she did it was because she just loves Scott. She calls him the love of her life, and if the show was meant to just demean Scott the whole time and make Ramona the girl power character, it wouldn't have done something like this. Again, I think back to Clone High Season 2, which fucks around with all the functions. It'll be so funny we make Joan of Arc the popular girl because goth girls are the end thing now, guys. But it was that original character's isolation that made her identifiable in the first place. By changing her to be more hip and modern, they removed what made her timeless. Meanwhile, Scott Pilgrim takes almost the opposite approach. These characters are in new scenarios, but they've never changed. This is because the show knows we didn't really want them to. No matter what journalist or Twitter says, these characters are iconic for a reason. After Ramona reveals all this, she says her plan completely failed because the movie fell apart. But then Scott reveals that's not the story he saw. He saw someone looking for him, caring for him, reflecting that arc Scott went through, fighting 7 evil exes to get with Ramona. If the show really were trying to pull a Clone High Season 2, it wouldn't have pulled this eternal sunshine of the spotless mind. I mean, for fuck's sake, the final battle with even older Scott takes place on this giant Evangelion-styled moon crater during a Scott Pilgrim musical. And this is where Ramona's arc comes to an end, and she discovers that who she was in the past, the evil exes she's always encountered and fucked over, it doesn't need to define her. She chooses at the very end to love herself over anyone else, and she tells Scott, the love of her life, to help her keep reminding her of that. On the one hand, it's teaching us about real life relationships, learning to love and embrace and motivate ourselves while also reminding our significant other to always be the best version of themselves. Or at least that's what I think, because I kinda can't test it right now. I know, it's shocking. The guy who looks like this is fucking single. But also, at the same time, it's now up to Scott, the fictional character, to remind us, the viewer, on how we can improve our own lives. The original book reminded us that we are shitty people, but not ones beyond redemption. And Scott Pilgrim Takes Off is rediscovering that love we had in the first place. Now, I don't think Scott Pilgrim Takes Off is a perfect show, but similar to how I feel about Klonoa 2 in my Klonoa video, I think Scott Pilgrim is a perfect sequel to what Scott Pilgrim was. The show isn't perfect, but it didn't have to be. It just had to do what Clone High didn't, remind us why we fell in love in the first place. In other words, this is so Metal Gear Solid 2.
Did you like it?
Fuck you in the lane you came with. Me and you ain't on the same shit. You ain't in my lane, bitch, nah. Throw that shit in fifth, rollie on my wrist. Ay, baby, you a star, I'm my only wish. I'm counting blue hundreds, I'm too money. Ay, and my little bitch, she too lovely. Yeah, hanging up and calling me right back. Ay, baby, why you calling me like that? Yeah, getting high with the seat, lay back. Baby, gon' relax, yeah. Hey, they don't know the half, yeah. No matter what happened, I got your back. Baby, this a fast sun. Yeah, we could fight, but the feeling's gone. I try to find the words, but they never come. I can still see you on the lawn, hey, laying outside in the summer sun. Hey, I'm with a dark-skinned girl on a Sunday. That's that Black Sabbath. She put them ones all down on a Hyundai, and she had to have it. Baby, that's the facts, yeah. That's the facts, yeah.
Randy Production. We top out the good.
Put in an ass made of PP.
Hey, what's going on, cut? It's me, your boy Gunnar Randy, here with the latest in music news and shit. We got some crazy shit going on here, bruh. Now, I'm gonna start with some shit. It's been a minute since we've seen Dumsy drop some new tracks, some new hot fire. Now, we've been hearing all the gossip, the rumors that he's kind of out of the game, doesn't want to do that shit anymore. That is until I heard this brand new mo-fucking leak for this new song called For All the Sky. And it seems like he's kind of experimenting a bit with a new sound, and man, bro, this shit is crazy. I mean, just take a listen to this shit, bro. You're gonna go fucking wild over this. Hey. Now, I don't know about you, but that shit was going hard. He's really going for something new and crazy, bro. Like, what the hell? And mo fucking legit, that's all we motherfucking got. Come on, where's the full song, bro? Drop a fucking track already or something. This boy Dumsy is sitting on a whole bunch of shit. He ain't making music anymore. What the fuck's going on with him? But anyways, thanks for watching Gunnar Randy Nation. That's all the news we got for today. This has been Gunnar Randy. Peace. Keep gooning.
Randy Production. We top out the good.